Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I give you Tony Cox.
Hey, thanks, Hamish. When you hear the next speaker, you'll know why I was the one to go on after her. In 1934, Hugh McDermott, the famous nationalist Scottish poet, who managed to get himself expelled for the SNP for being a communist, and got himself expelled for the Communist Party for being a nationalist. In 1934, he said a few things about Dundee which are quite interesting and very apt. The first thing that he said is that Dundee is a grim industrial cul-de-sac, a testament to man's inhumanity to man. And when we stand here 88 years later, when we see the situation that we are actually in now, what we might be able to say is that Dundee now is a post-industrial cul-de-sac. It is still a grim testament to man's inhumanity to man. Because we can see that inhumanity every day when we're standing outside the brew. At this present time, it's projected, or we know, that 20 to 30 people are being sanctioned every day at the hands of the Wellgate Job Centre. And let's get this straight what a sanction is. A sanction is a removal of every single means of livelihood open to a person. We heard from Charmaine earlier on, and I must say this, Charmaine's situation was tragic, but we've come across even worse situations than that, day in and day out, outside the Wellgate Job Centre. The question is, what do we do about this? What do we do about this situation, this post-industrial cul-de-sac that we are in? Because I first moved to Dundee in the early 80s, and at that time this place was full of manufacturing jobs. We had shipyards, Kestrel and Caledon. What we had was NCR and Timex and many other manufacturing centres besides. They paid good wages, decent wages, wages that you could actually bring a family up on. But what do we have now in this city, in this post-industrial cul-de-sac? What we have is we have MAC jobs. What we have is we have zero-hour contracts. What we have is we have minimum wages. And when you're in the dole, what we have is increasing benefit sanctions. More benefit sanctions in Dundee than in any other city across Scotland. And I say that is unacceptable. Now, we've been in negotiations with the Department of Work and Pensions at the Factory of Fear, otherwise known as Wellgate Job Centre. And we have put forward a number of proposals to them to drive down the sanctions. But the fundamental issue is this: we don't want the sanctions just driven down, we want an end to the sanctions. And in the run-up to the independence referendum, when Alex Salmon visited this city, he visited the Stobie for Aye Scottish Unemployed Workers Network registration stall along with Dawes. And what he said there was he gave us a guarantee that under independence that sanctions would be actually removed. That was the promise that he gave. Sadly, we did not get independence. And the chickens are now coming home to roost. Remember, in the last few days before that referendum, the three amigos came up on their ponies up to Scotland and made their vow. Their vow was Devo Max, and that meant that many people who were otherwise going to vote yes shifted their votes at the last moment. I believe this, that in the week in the run-up to that independence referendum, that we had independence in our hands. And it was because of the last-minute intervention by the three amigos, those three stooges, those people who absolutely lied through their teeth to the Scottish people about what they were going to get. And what have we seen in the last 2 or 3 weeks? We've seen two things. We've seen the Smith Commission inquiry report. And what did they offer us? They offered us the square root of zero. In fact, they offered us a pig in a poke. They offered us a pig in a poke. The only problem is, there's no pig in the poke, and the poke's full of holes. That's the reality of the matter. They offered us absolutely nothing. 3 days later, we have the budget, the autumn budget statement. Gideon Osborne and his public school boy friends at the same time as they're recommending a 21% pay rise for MPs at Westmonster. What did they offer public sector workers in this city and cities right across Britain? An absolute freeze for the next 2 years on their pay increases. What they also offered was an absolute freeze on welfare payments for the next 2 years. What they also told us and informed us is that 60% of the cuts are still to come. That's the situation we are in. And let me make this clear, as a historian as well as an activist. that they are pushing us back to the period of time when Hugh McDermott wrote those lines about Dundee. Make no mistake about it. Their aim is a fundamental removal of the welfare state, the fundamental privatisation of the welfare state. That is the situation that we were in. You know, that's the situation we're in now, and if they push us back to that, they'll push us back to a period of time that our great-grandparents knew about, when you needed to have shillings in your pocket before you could even consider calling the doctor. That is the situation we are in. The welfare state is under fundamental danger, and if Dundonians don't get up on their hind legs, like they have done on so many occasions in the past. Now, I'm not a Dundonian by birth, I'm a Dundonian by inclination. And that means I'm a bloody minded bugger. We are not going to stop. We are not going to stop our fight. This fight is just beginning. The fight for Scottish independence, what we believed would actually deliver the good society, that's been defeated for the moment. That's one battle that we lost, but we're in a war and we should remember that. Now, they offered us that vow. They said, we will give you Devo Max, but have they given us it? No. So we are saying to those people who voted no on the basis of Devo Max, the promise of Devo Max, you've been hoodwinked. And we demand home rule because we know that the interests of our poorest and vulnerable co-citizens in Dundee and in cities right across Scotland are not safe in the hands of the Westminster elites. That is the reality. So we're demanding home rule. But if anybody thinks that this is a step back from the demand for independence, then they're absolutely wrong, because my belief is this. Now that we've been denied home rule, the wool will actually be pulled from over the eyes of those people who were hoodwinked into voting no. They will realise and they will pay the price for actually voting no. That is the reality of the situation. So I say to everybody here, this is just the beginning of the fight. As Scottish Unemployed Workers Network, we are looking for volunteers to carry on our work outside the Dundee Job Centre. We've had certain progress. We've got just about 100% record in actually representing benefit claimants. Just today, before I was actually coming up to speak, two guys come up to me and said, are you for the Scottish Unemployed Workers Network? We have a case that we want you to actually look into. Two separate people. That is the situation that we're facing in Dundee. Every day I can't go on the bus without getting approached for folk about problems that they're actually having down at that fear factory. And the situation now is, we're asking people to get involved with the Scottish Unemployed Workers Network. We're asking people to come along to the meeting next week to look at what this next stage is in the demand for independence and where the ND movement is going from here. The point I would make, and I'll finish on this, there is an absolute need for unity within our ranks to get behind the demands that we can all agree on. And we should surely agree on this, that we should demand the handover of welfare to the Scottish Government. That's the fundamental demand that we should ask for, because it's absolutely clear, and I'll repeat this point because it needs repeating, that the future and the livelihood and the interests of the poorest and most vulnerable people within this city and cities right across Scotland is not safe in the hands of the Westminster elites. Thank you very much. Yay!